Hey everybody, welcome back. So I've played through about 35 RPGs on the channel now since it began, and when it comes to open world fantasy style RPGs, there's one RPG that I constantly find myself comparing all others to. It's Dragons Dogma Dark Arisen. Now just a real quick shout out to the brand new anime that started on Netflix, or at least it's dropped at the time that I was working on this video, so go and check that out if you don't know anything about it. Now I've already done a full review for Dragons Dogma Dark Arisen. I'll toss that up on the screen for you guys. But this video is going to be addressing a slightly different question, and that is, in the year 2020, is it still worth playing this game? The short answer is yes, but I don't want to just sound like some cheesy fanboy. I'd like to give you some solid reasons why you should go and get this game the next time it's on sale, or pay full price for it. We've already played through it once on the stream, and we're about to pick up where we left off and get into some Bitter Black Isle action. So if you wanted to check that out, there's a link to the stream on the screen right there, and I'll throw it down below. I also wanted to mention something that I'm working on for all Dragons Dogma fans out there, and that is a complete list of every single weapon and armor in the game. So we've got all weapons, we've got all upgrade tiers, we've got all elemental debuff knowledge, we've got weights, level requirements, the prices, the locations, the classes that can wield them, the upgrade materials, everything's there. Same for armor, and there's also a handy little checklist on the left so you can tick them off as you get them. I've put in so many hours into making this list, so if it does sound like something that you're interested in, please consider supporting me on my Patreon. That would be rad. Let's get into this. So straight away, let's tackle probably what's going to stop most people from picking this up right now. Graphically, it looks dated, and sadly only hardcore fans like you and me are going to look past that without even thinking about it. Now there are some graphical mods out there for the PC players. There's the 2K, 4K, even some 6K texture mods. There is also an ENB reshade mod, which actually is pretty impressive. Take a look at some of these screenshots right here. So you do have some options if you choose to play on the PC. So graphics aside, there's no more excuses. You can get this on the PS4, the Xbox One, you can play it on Steam, and you can now get it on the Switch. So that right there is the first reason. It's accessible. The second reason has everything to do with the character create. The first thing that you do when you start a game like this is spend an unhealthy amount of time creating a character. But in literally every single other RPG, it's all cosmetic. So you get away with creating a massive giant character that's as nimble as everybody else in the game. Or you get to create a tiny little gnome that can carry as much as a giant. Not in Dragon's Dogma. Weight is a concept that has so many far-reaching effects that not a lot of people even realize. So the biggest three contributing factors to your character's weight are height, the character's build, and the level of musculature that you choose. Now, no matter what you end up picking, there are 5 weight classes at the start: super small, small, medium, large, and extra large. Now the smaller the character that you create, the less base stamina you will start off with, and your maximum encumbrance will also be quite low. However, you will have the highest rate of stamina regeneration, which loosely translates to a small character that's very energetic and can likely perform a lot of actions in a short amount of time and crawl all over these creatures without having to worry about falling off or running out of stamina. But the downside is that you'll likely never be able to wear any heavy armor or carry a lot of loot, which will encumber you, which negates the very reason for creating a small agile character in the first place. Now conversely, you can create a giant that will have a massive base stamina bar, have an enormous amount of encumbrance, but suffers from the slowest stamina restoration of all time. Now I don't know about you, but that's the only RPG that I can think of off the top of my head where you get to craft your character exactly the way that you want it and have that visual aspect enhance the way that you play. So right there's your second reason: a meaningful character create. Straight into the third reason. Have you guys ever noticed that a lot of RPGs have day-night cycles that again don't really do anything beyond creating amazing sunsets and sunrises, which, don't get me wrong, is awesome. I love to see it. I've taken a ton of screenshots of exactly that. So it does have that kind of wow factor, but there's just no impact on the game world. The early levels of Dragon's Dogma and right up through mid-game just isn't like that. Darkness is bad. Nighttime is bad. You see, your visibility drops right down. You've got a lantern that lights maybe 5 meters around you. The ambient sounds change from birds chirping, leaves rustling in the trees, various farm animals making whatever sound they make, to an almost silent ambient soundscape that forces you to listen to what's going on around you if you want to navigate through it safely. As all too often, if you treat it like you are running around during the daylight, you will run into some of the toughest monsters in the game, or hordes of undead that just start rising up around you, and 9 times out of 10 you'll probably die. Now what that does is it creates this sense of urgency. Whenever the sun starts going down, you want to start making your way back to a safe haven, but it also gives you this goal to hit. When are you going to be able to brave the darkness? Absolutely amazing. There you go, that's reason 3, a day-night cycle that actually has a real tangible impact on the world. The next reason has everything to do with your character class. Now there are 3 standard vocations, and they are Fighter, Mage, and Strider. And then there are 6 advanced vocations, and they are Warrior, Assassin, Ranger, Magic Archer, Sorcerer, and Mystic Knight. Now where Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen excels is the fact that each vocation feels very different when you're playing it. For example, if you spend some time playing as a warrior, you'll realize really quickly if you change out to a Mystic Knight that you just can't position yourself the same way, and the method that you employed to take enemies down can no longer be applied. And that adds an enormous amount of replayability and experimentation. And this is something that Capcom excels at. You can get the same sense from a game like Monster Hunter, for example. And even though the combat does not feel Monster Hunter-ish, when you switch out weapons in Monster Hunter, the entire rhythm of the combat changes. Your positioning changes. And don't forget that once you combine this fact with how the character create works, you start to see the brilliance behind, for example, creating a gigantic, heavy, hammer-wielding character that deals a massive amount of damage with singular blows, and being comfortable with that visual choice because your character will have a much greater stamina bar than, for example, a slim, more lithe character that was wielding that same hammer, meaning you could fight longer and harder before needing a break to recharge your stamina. So there's your 4th reason, a class, or in this case, vocation-based system that makes replayability very, very attractive. So the next reason has everything to do with the visual aspect of finding new loot for your character. Now a lot of RPGs do this already, but not to the extent that Dragon's Dogma does. First of all, there is a clothing layer underneath all of your armor, and this remains visible if you're wearing, for example, a piece of armor that doesn't completely cover your arms, which means there's an amazing layered armor system going on here. Now there are more than 500 unique pieces of armor in this game, including full sets, which transform your character from head to toe and are like one-piece things to equip, through to individual pieces of armor like helmets, torsos, gloves, greaves, and boots. And there are also capes, rings, and earrings to top everything off. And here's the kicker. You can mix and match any of these pieces to your heart's content, and every single piece has a visual component, and very few of them are just simple reskins. Now the exact same thing can be said for weapons. There are over 200 unique weapons in this game, and if that was not enough, every single item, weapons, armor, everything can be upgraded using items that you can find out in the world, monster parts, and loot from treasure chests. And the incentive to upgrade your weapons and armor is they do more damage, or they protect you more, or the debilitation resistances increase. And a really big one, which is often forgotten, is that the piece you are upgrading gets lighter, which has an awesome effect on your encumbrance. So there you go, that's the 5th reason. And that is a very comprehensive, visual, layered weapons and armor system. I hope by now you guys are seeing why the small player base of Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is so passionate about the game. And if you're still not convinced, I've got another 2 reasons why you should pick this game up. The 6th reason is you can scale large enemies. Yep, if your character has enough stamina, you can take a running jump, latch yourself onto an enemy, and scale them. And in many cases, this is the most effective way to reach certain weak points for certain enemies. So while you may be having a lot of fun as that huge hulking warrior standing at the ground beating on a Cyclops' feet, a small lithe character might be able to scale all the way around up to its head and start stabbing it in the weak point, which is its eyeball. Now this can become an extraordinary way to play, especially fighting against some of the massive bosses that are in this game. So there you go, that's reason number 6, scalable enemies. The 7th reason is about loot. A loot in this game respawns, and each weapon pile or treasure chest has a percentage chance for specific items to appear in it or not. And some of the most powerful weapons and armor can only be found in treasure chests or loot piles that have very low percentage chance to drop. And I know that that can be problematic for some people, and some people really hate the fact that a 2% chance of dropping incentivizes massive amounts of grind just to get one piece of armor or a unique weapon. But don't forget, this is only for a very specific set of top tier items. The vast majority of weapons and armor in this game can be either purchased or gotten as rewards for completing quests. So this stuff is really for the hardcore players that want to catalog every single thing that they can get out of the game. Now the final reason has everything to do with the fact that they invented a system in this game called the pawn system. Essentially what that is an AI-based henchman that you get to create very early on in the game that supplements your style of play. Now many people gave the AI a really hard time in this game, but you know what? It's actually pretty capable. For example, if you create a melee type character and you want to have a pawn or henchman that focuses on healing and buffs to keep you alive, they will do a pretty damn good job at doing that. Now for your first pawn, you get to basically go back to character create and craft that character exactly how you want it to be, and you can then hire up to 2 more pawns to fill out your full party of 4. It almost feels a little bit D&D like. A party of 4 adventurers running through the countryside, coming across a griffin and taking it down. You've got your archer, your mage, your big 2-handed beefy fighter in the front, and also a healer. It's fantastic. And when you think about it, all this stuff is delivered on a PS3. It should really be blowing your mind. So there you have it. Those are my reasons. This game is definitely worth it. If you see this game on sale, which it frequently is now, you should grab it if you haven't played it already. Dragons Dogma Dark Arisen comes with the DLC Bitter Black Isle, which is an entirely new area and possibly adds 20, 30, maybe even 40 hours extra of gameplay and exploration. New weapons, new armors, new monsters and bosses to fight. Lastly guys, don't forget that if you are thinking about going on this Dragons Dogma adventure and you want a clean, clear checklist or reference list listing every single weapon, item, and piece of armor in the game and where to get them, what materials you need to upgrade them, then check out my Patreon, link up there on the screen and down below. And I hope you guys liked the video. Cheers, see you guys in the next one.